Schedule release, 8 p.m. tonight. We are starting to see some leaks come out. I initially had picked the dream matchup for week 1, in my opinion, to be the Jets versus the Browns. But we know that's not going to be the case now because the Jets are playing the Bills, I believe, in week 1. Whatever it is, it's not the Browns. So we'll start with you, Jason. Your dream week 1 matchup for the Cleveland Browns.
Well, dream to me means win. And what better way to start a season than against a guy who's never coached a game before at the NFL level? So for my dream matchup, give me the Arizona Cardinals and John Gannon returning home to Cleveland for his first game. You know the nerves will be high. Calling his first game, Drew Petzing, the Cardinals offensive coordinator from Cleveland. I'm sorry, not from Cleveland, but was with the Browns on staff last year, coming back. And there's just a lot of kinks to be worked out when you're doing it for the first time. And a lot of things you don't know until you go through it and experience it. So give me a first-time coach. Give me a rookie head coach with a team that is not that good, and bring them here into Cleveland, make them come across the country, and rack up an rack up a week 1 win that hasn't been very common around these parts. The Browns typically, up until last year, and it took a last-second 106-yard field goal last year to win it at the buzzer. They don't have a lot of success in week 1, so I think that's probably their best path to victory in week 1.
Do you think Kyler Murray will be ready back?
No. Oh, he's not playing until at least week 10. At least week 10.
There you go.
Yeah, well, that's a good one there.
Yeah.
That's a very good one. I'll take that.
G, what's yours?
Well, I got a couple, but I'm going to just go with the top of the food chain. I think I sent you 2. I said either the Colts or somebody else. Who did I send you? The Colts or the –
Take the graphic. Yeah, G.
There it is. So I had another squad down there too, but my first choice was the Colts. And the reason that I picked the Colts is a lot like my man right here, Jason. I don't know who they're going to start at quarterback. I don't know if it's going to be the young dude, Richardson. I don't know if it's going to be another backup quarterback. I don't even know what their coach is talking about. So they got all of the new stuff. I like to catch a young rookie quarterback. I like to catch rookie coaches. And I like to catch teams that's kind of in turmoil. So I look at that game as a game where you got all the right ingredients and you want to get off to a quick start. And I think if you look at the rosters, you look at the Browns, yes, they've retooled the defense, but I think that defense is going to get some experience. They do got a running game in Indianapolis, but I think that's a game McNuggets that the Browns would love to see on the schedule, given the fact that they have an experience level. And I think they're just a better overall team. And I think give opportunity for Deshaun Watson to get off to a fast start.
Anthony?
Gee, just so you know, your other pick was the Texans. I went back and reviewed the Texans.
Yes. I'll take the Texans too.
Yeah. So I went in a little different direction than you guys, and I totally get the points you're making, but we spend the whole offseason speculating and thinking we know things and hoping we get answers. Well, in week 1, I actually want answers. And I don't want to play the best team on the schedule, but I don't also want to play the worst team because the worst teams are still alive in week 1. They have the same record as everyone. They're not dead. I want to play the teams that are going to suck later in the year when they're fighting to tank to get that top pick, especially next year with guys like Caleb Williams and Drake May in the draft. So my dream week 1 matchup for the Browns would be at home against the 49ers. Woo! And let me tell you why. Brock Purdy's coming off his Tommy John surgery. He may not be back to full health. Yeah. So that means we're looking at either Trey Lance or Sam Darnold at quarterback. But more importantly, I want answers. And the 2 biggest questions going into the season for the Browns are, A, can Jim Schwartz, Dalvin Tomlinson, Siaki Ika, Obo, and the rest of this revamped defense stop the run? Well, what better test than maybe the most creative run offense in the entire league in Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers? And number 2, what is this Kevin Stefanski offense going to look like with Deshaun Watson with a full offseason, a full year, no distractions, all his new weapons? And what better way to get an answer to that test than playing one of the best defenses in the league without their star defensive coordinator, DeMeco Ryans, because he's in Houston with the Texans. So they're going under a little coaching change. Their defense may not be as good in week 1 as it will be in week 5, 6, 7, 8, later in the season when they get some continuity. So I want a real test, and I want real answers, but I don't want the hardest test yet. So with that, I want to see the 49ers in week 1.
That you may not want all the smoke, but you got a lot of the smoke.
No, that's a whole ton of smoke. Like that, because the 49ers, you said Shanahan is the most creative. By far, he's the most creative head coach when it comes
at least
to
in the run game. At least in the run game. Yeah.
He'll run the ball with fullbacks. He'll run the balls with tight ends. He'll run the ball with receivers. He'll do it from motion. He'll do split action. He'll even run a little bit of read option. And I think Trey Lance will be running some of that if he's the quarterback, if Purdy is not available. And you not only stress yourself, defensively trying to stop that run game, but when you talk about on offense and the Browns going against the 49ers defense, I mean, they're top 1-2 defense in the whole entire league besides the Philadelphia Eagles. You got Bosa.
They just signed Hargrave.
Just signed Hargrave. So, man, that's a tough way to start.
I just want answers. We spend 6, 7, 8, 9 months speculating what we think could happen, what we think the offense is going to look like, how we think Tomlinson and these defensive tackles are going to show up the run game. I don't want to speculate. I want proof. And as bad as the Cardinals may be, as horrid as the Colts may be, we may not actually know anything about the Browns after week 1 if those are the two matchups.
Answers?
And frankly,
You're not going to have any answers off one game anyway.
I want answers.
Hey, listen,
I want answers.
I can't handle the answers. Listen.
You don't want the truth.
Answers could wind up in firings.
No, I do not. I don't want to know what we are yet. I want to work into it, right? I don't want to know. I don't want to look in the crystal ball if I'm going on my first date and be like, okay, dear crystal ball, am I going to marry this person or not? So you don't want to know that.
You don't read the last page of the book first.
No, I need to at least go through it and then halfway through at least change my mind. The 49ers, to me, and I don't want them to figure it out either. Because think about it. We could play them once somebody gets healthy. And if they figure it out at quarterback, we really in trouble.
So wouldn't you rather play him week 1 than week 6 or 7 when Purdy's back?
I would like to.
And with the Cardinals, I'd rather play him early as well before Kyler Murray's back. I'd rather play the Colts before Anthony Richardson potentially figures it out.
Right.
I want all these games earlier in the season before their quarterback situations are secure.
I wouldn't mind a week 3 game. A week 3 49ers, a week 4. They still ain't going to have their quarterback back. And if they starting off really slow, there could be some little bit of turmoil. What are you guys doing over here? So yeah, I would. But week 1,
Jason's not buying it.
I'm trying to think if it was week 3 in 2019 when they went out to San Francisco and got absolutely cooked.
Oh, that was 2019.
And it was the Charles Frederick Kitchens year, and Odell was putting himself in the game on punt returns. Just ran on the field, just didn't tell anyone. Just ran on the field and returned to punt.
I think Baker stared down 2 or 3 dudes. It was picks. It was over in the first quarter. It was 21-0.
Of all the bad Browns games I've covered the last few years, that might be the worst. It was a brutal.
What was the final score of that?
Oh, I don't remember. It was bad. Tore their arms and legs off and beat them with them bad.
Oh, it was
prison beating bad.
It was
bad.
It was so bad. I was at the time. I was just doing Browns content, and I remember getting into it with these 49ers fans and being like, y'all was at the same place we was a year or so ago. Y'all ain't really that good. And then all of a sudden, I was going back and forth, and I've never – it was my first mini viral little episode because it was all of these 49ers fans was yeah, you idiot. And from that point on time, the 49ers have always been good. But they smoked us. It was –
31-3.
The game was over in the first half.
It was October 7th. It wasn't as early as I thought that it was.
Nah, good. And it was on prime time, too.
Well, this game would be in Cleveland. You'd have the dog pound. I just want answers. We've speculated long enough. I want to know, is this team for real? And I know you're not going to get every answer in week 1. You're not reading the final page of the book. But I just want to know, are we in for a season that we should be excited about for 17, 18 weeks? Or are we going to essentially spend all that time hyping ourselves into it and then realize real quick, it ain't what we wanted? On the flip side, what's your nightmare week 1 situation, Jason?
I went with the divisional opponent, Baltimore, as my nightmare because Baltimore at home in September, since I wrote it down, since 2008, they are 21-5 at home in September. So for that reason alone, and we saw what happened a couple of years ago when the Browns opened again. It was the COVID year. The Browns opened against Baltimore. I don't remember if that was home or away.
It was away, and they got smoked.
And they got Kevin's first game, and they did get smoked extra crispy. They had that fake punt from their own 20 or whatever. I don't know. To this day, I don't know what happened with that play call.
It was Scottish Hammer. He just takes the ball, he starts running, gets it blocked. It was
not good.
No,
it wasn't good. So I don't want any part of Baltimore, especially Lamar. Now that the contract's figured out, Odell be motivated to go against his former team. I want no part of the Ravens on the road, week 1 at home, in a place in a month where they've dominated for the last 15 years.
And it'd be warm. And Lamar Jackson in September is otherworldly.
He's healthy.
Well,
he's going to be healthy and he's going to play.
It'd be warm outside. He has an extra gear.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, that's a very good pick. Very good.
I think that's what you also picked too, and we gave you a different one because.
Well, he picked two.
I threw two out there.
What would you end up?
I said if Adam the Bull can have 2 bets, I can have 2 picks. So I can have double nightmares. I took the Bengals.
Which, real quick before you
division.
go, it has been leaked, not official, but it does appear that this is going to be the Week 1 matchup from a couple sources on Twitter that are maybe not the most reputable, but you have seen a couple of these on Twitter. Home versus Cincinnati is the Week 1 opener. But gee, why is this your nightmare?
Well, I that's a little bit better, but home versus I'll take home. My nightmare was at the Bengals. If it was at the Bengals, we're in trouble because once again you have Joe Burrow. Now, traditionally, Joe Burrow starts off a little slow against the Browns in the earlier parts of the season.
Yep.
Then he warms up a little bit. But my thing is, if you're playing a division foe and you lose that game, you basically down 2. You already down 2 games in the division. So I don't like to have that hanging over your head. Now, if you can win that game, that's a big thing. That's huge if you can win it because you now say we won in our division against probably the best team in the division. I just think the comparisons. The second point I don't like is the comparison between Joe Burrow and Deshaun Watson. Right? If Joe Burrow comes out and he's ready to go and he's throwing the ball all over the park, you're gonna have a direct comparison to what Deshaun Watson is doing that game. And and this is year 2. Everybody's going to be counting, right? Now,
there's no more excuses.
There's no excuses. So now Deshaun Watson versus Joe Burrow, people are going to be expecting, okay, well, can you keep up with Joe Burrow? Can you go touchdown for touchdown, answer a drive, maybe bring your team back late? So, like you said, you want answers. With that game, you're going to get answers right now. And it has there's a lot on the line. It's magnified a little bit because it's a division game.
Yeah, I went out of division game for my nightmare, and I'm going to contradict a little with what I said on my dream.
You don't want no answers now.
No, I do want answers, but in a different way. My nightmare Week 1 matchup is on the road at Seattle. You have a brand new offense with Deshaun Watson leading the show, a full offseason, new receivers. There is no harder place to play than Seattle. They lead the league, the Qualcomm Stadium, whatever their 12th man is. They get more false start penalties against the opposing team than any team in the league. It is the loudest stadium in the league. And also their defense is really freaking good. They had a top 10 rated secondary last year. They finished 8th in the league with 25 takeaways, 7th in the league with sacks, and they just drafted the best cornerback in football with the 5th pick, Devin Witherspoon, to pair up with Talik Woolen, who was as good as any rookie cornerback in the league last year. Would have won Rookie of the Year if it wasn't for Sauce Gardner. And they added your boy Bobby Wagner back. So you talk about a ravenous crowd, a potentially rainy situation because I believe it rains in Seattle 99 out of 100 days, so it's probably going to be a rainy, wet football. A good team, and they've also won 4 straight home openers and 4 straight Week 1 games. So Pete Carroll, whatever it takes in the offseason, whatever his preparation schedule is, he has those guys ready to play in Week 1. They beat Russell Wilson in Week 1 last year in that homecoming. I do not want to see the Browns traveling to Seattle in their Week 1 matchup.
Well, they have 2 West Coast trips this year, the Rams and the Seahawks. They did ask the league to put them back-to-back. Kevin wants to take them out there and keep them out there. So in your scenario, it really is a nightmare if they get their wish granted because they would stay on the West Coast and they'd go
2
at
games?
Seattle, at L.A., and then come home.
Do you know?
I don't think that'll happen, though.
Do you know if the NFL will grant that request?
They have in the past.
In the past?
The Patriots like to do that. The Patriots just last year had 2 West Coast games. They were San Francisco and I think the Cardinals, and they stayed out west in between. Bill likes doing that, likes keeping them out there.
That's genius. I mean, if the NFL will grant that, why doesn't every team kind of take advantage?
I don't know, and we'll see how much juice the Haslams have and Kevin Stefanski and Paul DePodesta and Andrew Berry have if the league grants it or not. I know it's something that they would like to do. They'd like to stay out west if at all possible. Well,
in that scenario, you get the Rams in Week 2. I'd rather see the Rams later in the season because I think they're going to be horrendous and tanking later, but it is what it is. We'll find out tonight who officially their Week 1 opponent is. Like I said, there's a couple leaks on Twitter right now that indicate It may or may not be the Bengals at home, which certainly would be fun. It was Halloween last year, the home game on Monday Night Football against the Bengals. Two more things real quick. Anthony, do you want to do PCC now or at the end of the schedule talk?
We'll save it for the end of the schedule talk, Mike. That sounds better.
All right. If you had to choose, and we'll find out tonight, would you guys rather have, and we'll start with G, we'll go Jason next, the first half of your schedule be the easier half or the second half? Would you rather get off, in theory, to a hot start and have to fight your tougher opponents later, or vice versa and kind of crawl out of a proverbial hole to then get into the playoffs with some easier teams later in the season?
I would, to me,
there's no perfect answer.
Even the question is kind of loaded because you got to think about it. You really never know from year to year what a team's going to be. So on paper, you may see a team that is supposed to be a gimme win. Let's go back to last year and compare and contrast. We get the Carolina Panthers on the road. That turned out to be a very difficult game with the Baker Mayfield. You come back, and now you got the Jets. That was supposed to be a game you win.
Yep.
And instead of you winning the game going away it seemed like in the fourth quarter, you let them come back. They beat you in a catastrophic meltdown, and now you're 1-1, and you're going into, I think, week 3. And who did they play?
Pittsburgh.
You play Pittsburgh
On Thursday night.
Yep.
Week 3, Thursday night. And they actually win that game, right?
Yep.
But you think about it. Pittsburgh beats them later in that year, and Pittsburgh actually finishes ahead of the Browns, right? Because they lost early in the year. They figured out their quarterback situation. So even if you start, right, if you start with supposed gimme games, what happens is if you lose some of those gimme games, now the thing is, oh, snap. And our schedule after the bye week is crazy hard.
Yeah.
So now it's a psychological thing where, hey, and not only did we never recover, I think the team always thought about that Jets game. They're like, hey, we are how many? We're one win away from we should be undefeated right now. Then I believe they went to Atlanta and lose that game.
Yep.
So now you're like, wow, we lost to Atlanta without their best quarterback, their starting running backs. They had a bunch of people off the practice squad. We've already lost to the Jets when we should have won. Now you're sitting there at 2-2 and you feel sick. Now if you was 2-2 against really good teams, it's different. Like, wow, we got some other stuff that we can do.
Jason?
This is easy. Give me the easy start because I don't want to do a coaching search and I don't want to do coach firings and everything else. And we get a hard start to the season with a hard schedule to start the year. Gee, you've talked about the first 6 games. If that is the case, if it's 2-4, I don't want to be around Berea.
Me either.
So give me a quick start. Give me some easy games early. Let them get some confidence in their new schemes that they're running in the system. Let Deshan and Kevin get some feel-good vibes together calling this offense. I don't see anybody else get fired in Berea and figure this thing out and get off to a good start and then tackle once you get a little bit of momentum, you get some confidence, then you can worry about the hard part of the schedule in the second half.
I'm right there with Jason. I think confidence is so big, especially when you have a first-year quarterback. He was there last year, but not fully there. A new offensive scheme, I think we all agree. Whatever the offense looks like, it's going to be drastically different than what we saw last year. And even though I want my dream week 1 scenario is the 49ers to get those answers, I'd rather have it be the 49ers than like 4 or 5 quote-unquote cupcake games to get them some confidence, to build that rapport, to get them rolling into the tougher games as opposed to having to start out with, your 49ers, your Broncos who may be better this year, your division games, because I think all 3 teams in the AFC North outside of Cleveland, well, including Cleveland, are going to be good this year. That division's going to be a bloodbatt one way or another.
That was a good-ass point, Jason. It's crazy because we say it all the time. I'll be saying, this guy got to go, this person has to go. But we got to really think about it. Like, you got to really internalize. We've been through this before. That's the worst case scenario. If they got to get another coach, we know how this thing looks.
Yeah.
If they got to, so now you're talking about another coach. Your quarterback is in another system. Now you're talking about the philosophy of how you want to draft because the general manager could be there. Do you want to go from a 4-3 to a 3-4? Is it the right philosophy? Should Deshaun be playing in it? It's just brutal.
Even bigger picture than that, and we've touched on this on the show. If this thing unravels and they do have to clean house and they start blowing people out again, they're blowing out the roster too because I think you're going to see guys maybe even Myles Garrett saying, okay, that's enough.
Yep.
I'm done here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, you guys, we can't, it's been how many years and we haven't figured this out yet. Get me out of here. And I think that's absolutely, it could come to that.
And you can't, if that is the situation, I think we all agree, none of us want that to happen, but if it is, I don't think we can blame Myles Garrett at that point for saying, hey, send me someplace where I can win. I've been here. I put my dues in Cleveland. I want a chance to play for a Super Bowl. And if they start off slow and they blow it up again and they look like they're going to have to go through some sort of rebuild with a new coach and a new roster construction, I could see Chubb asking. I could see Garrett asking. I mean, Watson's locked in here with his contract. I can't imagine they'd move him. At least they have that centerpiece to build around with a different roster.
Well,
But
they would. I don't.
a lot of the big guys would be out of here.
I think it wouldn't even come down to those guys asking. I just think when you start over like that, the new regime's going to come in and say, okay, well, we just gave up our three first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. How can we get those back? All right, well, what's Myles Garrett worth? What's Joe Bitonio worth? What's Nick Chubb worth? Like, it becomes one of those fire sale things, and then you kind of end up with a situation like the Rams.
Yeah.
But we don't have the championship to show for it.
It all works if you win a title.
Yes,
And you can live with it all if you have a Super Bowl to look back on and say, this was worth it because we have this. And I'm holding the fantasy football trophy right there. If you don't have it, it's a failure.
We just now we're. And so when I say I just give you a disclaimer about that. Even if I say this is not working, trust me, that's the last thing anybody should want to do. And if I'm right about that, no, I'm wrong.
So give me an easy start to the schedule. Give me a couple of cupcakes, a couple layups earlier, although if it's the Bengals, that's not a layup.
At all.
But get a couple of those easy wins on the schedule early, chip and putt a little bit, get your rhythm, and then tackle the meat of it when everybody's safe and probably no one's getting fired mid-season at least.